Hi guys, so I've got a new project on the go and I thought it'd be cool to share a quick walkthrough with you on how to create a basic headpiece. I'll be creating a circlet for Lorna or Polaris from The Gifted to take to MCM with me. Well, first things first, these are the images that I am working with. It is a bit of an odd design, so it's a bit trial and error, but we will see what I can come up with. So I started with a piece of paper long enough to go around my head, and then I measured the point between one ear and the other, and I've got that there. So luckily it's a symmetrical design, so all I need to do is fold it over and do half of it, and then when I cut it out it'll be symmetrical for me. So you want half of that number. And then you want to draw out your design. So it's easiest to make any changes that you want to at this stage. If you cut it out, try it on, see if there are any places you need to tweak, and then remake it in the paper, and then just keep going until you've got it right. So then you just need to cut it out and and here's one I made earlier. As you can see, it's nice and symmetrical. At this stage you do want to consider how you are going to fasten it. So you might want to use eyelets or D-rings, mould them onto the sides, and then use elastic so that it clips around your head. Now her design uses these parts as clasps, so it literally sits over her ears and clasps onto the head like that. I'm going to see if I can make it work. If not, I'll be adding D-rings at the later stages. So at this stage you're going to want to transfer your design onto a base. Now I'm going to use foam because it's nice and malleable. It's also very cheap, so if you mess up it's not too much of a problem. And again you want 2 sheets just so you can get everything nice and symmetrical. Design, and then you just need to cut it out. And you've got your base in foam. So now you've got your base, and that is roughly what it's going to look like whilst it's on. So the next step would be to do the detailing. Now she's actually, along the headpiece, got raised edges. There are lots of different ways you can do this. I could cut out foam to create the edges and then worbla over the top. I could just use worbla to do the detailing, but what I'm going to try is doing foam clay and then sanding it back to create those really nice smooth edges, and then putting worbla over the top. I'm going to be doing it on this because foam clay does dry to the shape, and this is going to be roughly the shape that I want it to be in. Okay, so there is the base. So we're going to leave it to dry. I will say it doesn't have to be 100% smooth, it doesn't have to be like the neatest work you've ever done, because this, once it's dry, will peel off, and you can then trim down the edges. You can use a sander to smooth it all down so it's nice and rounded. The only thing I would say is try and make sure that all of these front lines are at least similar height and width, and that will make your job a lot easier once it's set. Okay, and I'll leave it and come back to it later. it's now hardened, so you just need to trim all these edges back to the original foam. Okay, once you've trimmed it back as much as you can, you then start to peel it off from the foam. Okay, so you've got your base, and then you've got the raised areas. You can then trim down the inside edges. So you want to sand out as many imperfections as you can, so I've obviously started along here, just because the worbla picks up a lot of imperfections, so get out as much as you can here. Okay, now you have everything sanded, it's time to start on the worbla. You can use your either your base as a template or the original paper template that you made. You can then transfer that pattern onto worbla. So if you draw around it, give yourself a bit of extra room, and then you can tuck those ends over and it's a bit more secure. Okay, so now you've got your worbla, you need to reattach your base and your raised edges. You can use hot glue, I've got some contact glue here. Once it's all stuck back into place, you can then start on the worbla. So it does take patience, but you will get there eventually. As you can see, it's moulded into all the nooks and crannies. So that is the base covered in worbla. Now if I was going to do it again, I'd probably make the width of the worbla thicker, just so that I've got more to wrap around, because there are places where it's not worked particularly well and it's a bit rough. And at this stage you're also going to want to shape it. So you heat it up and then you sort of mould it to whatever body part you're going to use. My advice would be to do it over close if at all possible, because this gets very, very hot. Okay, so I've heated it up and I've smoothed along the edges. I've actually got a glove like this with sort of a smooth texture, which has helped me sort of just blend in all the edges, which is quite good. So once you're happy with how smooth it is and the shape of it, you can then go on to prepping. I'm going to be using a wood glue. We tend to use this over normal PVA because this is a bit more hard wearing. You can also use gesso or gesso, however you pronounce it, and things like a normal plastic or wood-based primer or a spray paint primer, whatever you prefer really. Okay, so you want to try and get nice and even layers. Try to make them quite thin layers, because otherwise it's just going to dry quite blobby, but it will take a couple of layers to build up. So if you've missed a bit, don't worry about it, you'll get it on the next layer. Okay, after 4 layers of glue, as you can see, it's nice and shiny, nice and smooth, got a good prepped surface to work with. You can either use spray paints or acrylics, or a mix of anything really. So let's get to it. So I've actually gone with a car spray paint because it's got that nice metallic finish that I'm after. Okay, that is the first coat of spray paint. Now it's best to do it in thin layers, that way it's not going to go all lumpy. And then sort of just reapply as needed once it's dry. Okay, so once it's dry you can start adding in details like highlights and shadows, and then when that's finished you can seal it with a lacquer or Mod Podge or something like that. We when you're happy with all the highlights and the shadows, you can then seal it. So I tend to go with a sort of hobbycraft type sealant. This one's Plasticoat and it tends to do quite well. Okay, forgive the wig, it's for demonstration purposes at the moment. So she is all finished. She's got shadows, she's got highlights. The elastic on the back is attached with the D-rings. So I'm ready to go off and kick some butt. And see you next time. Bye.